For those who are just joining, we're going to start in about 30 seconds or so to talk about cleaning and disinfecting due to the coronavirus. So hang on just a second. We're just waiting for people to jump on because I know it takes a few minutes sometimes for people to get noticed and get their computer hooked up. All right, I'm going to put that down because it's hurting my arm to hold it anymore. So welcome to everybody who is joining us. I'm Robin Bennett from the Dog Gurus, and we decided to start a few of these Facebook Live posts to just help you navigate the COVID-19 coronavirus issue. I know that's a big concern for all of our members and all of those who have pet care facilities. So yesterday we had our first one, and we had a ton of questions about cleaning and disinfecting that came up. And turns out that some of the folks from Virax were actually on the or on the Facebook Live, and they emailed us some helpful tips. So I reached out to them and said, could you just come on and tell everybody this stuff? So they were gracious enough to actually say yes. And so we've been working on and off with them. Virax was actually one of the sponsors at our summit that we just had to postpone. So we were really happy to be able to get with them. So I'm going to bring up on the screen here. First of all, we have Nicole Kinney, who's the Vice President of Professional and Technical Services. And then we also have Todd Hepburn. Todd is the one that kind of has coordinated all this stuff for me, and he's the Director of Corporate Partnerships. So thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. So we're going to start out, and as we go through this Facebook Live, we will obviously answer any questions you guys have, so feel free to make comments in the comments box, and I'll ask as many of those as I can during this next 15, 20 minutes or so. But anyway, I wanted to start with you guys just giving a little history about your company. I know you've been around for quite a while, although you're relatively new to the daycare and boarding industry, so I'll throw that out to you first to get started.
Yeah, so Virax was founded in 1998, which is actually relatively young for a disinfectant company. And our chemistry is a relatively young chemistry, being accelerated hydrogen peroxide. But we have been, because we have such a unique chemistry and a unique value proposition, and it works so well, we've been very, very successful in many, many industries, such as healthcare and dental. You'd find our products in many, many institutions and schools, universities, as well as it's very, very widely used on cruise ships, which is very topical right now. And
Yeah.
it's the only it's actually the only disinfectant you'll find on the International Space Station as well. So it's used very, very broadly because of its safety profile, because of its efficacy, and recently, in the last 4 years, really, we launched our own brands into the animal health space. And so you'd be able to find accelerated hydrogen peroxide under the Rescue Disinfectants brand in the United States. And then if anybody's calling in from Canada, you'd find it as Prevail in Canada. And the neat thing about our product is that the only active ingredient is hydrogen peroxide, which makes it very, very safe for the animals, for the people who handle it, but it's also extremely efficacious, and it kills whatever you need it to kill in a very, very short contact time. And we do have experience with this type of situation, and I wasn't around for that, but Nicole can probably expand on that a little for us.
Sure. I actually started at Virax in 2003 during the first wave of SARS. So my first day of work was actually going to a SARS clinic that we were setting up for using our products. The Ministry of Health had announced that accelerated hydrogen peroxide was the product that we were going to use during SARS in Toronto and across Canada. So it was quite an exciting time.
Certainly, oh my gosh, that's an interesting first day of work.
Yeah, it really was. But I mean, it's our ability in terms of what we've been doing in setting up facilities in outbreaks like this. We're being used at the repatriation sites in Canada for everybody that is coming back from China, everybody that's coming off the Diving Princess. And as Todd had said, our products are used in the cruise industry to help not just with COVID-19, but also with norovirus and the different outbreaks that they do have on cruise ships, because you have so many different people together. So it's unfortunate that how spread happens.
So talk a little bit about, in generalities, about cleaning in general. So I know we obviously in the pet care industry, we're doing a lot of cleaning anyway, because we're dealing with a lot of animals and, you know, all of their germs. I know there's some people that just spray something, rinse it off, and they go about their day, but kind of talk about, you know, what it takes to clean versus disinfect and the differences of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, my mom was a nurse, and so we're often taught by our parents how to clean. And when we're dealing with potentially infectious diseases, or we have a lot of animals together, we really do need to think about that. So there's really several different steps. First, as you're saying, cleaning. So we need to remove any organic soil, whether it's feces, vomit, food, that needs to be removed from the surface. To make certain you have a clean surface. And you're going to do that either through the use of detergents, or if the disinfectant you're using has detergency properties, so it's a cleaner disinfectant, you can use that as your cleaning step as well. And then after the area has been cleaned, then you're going to reapply for disinfection. And what's important is that we need to understand what the contact time of your product is. And contact time is the length of time a surface has to stay wet in order to kill whatever pathogens we're concerned with. So if we're talking a product that has a 10-minute contact time, that means the surface has to stay wet for 10 minutes before you want to remove that. And depending on how you're applying the product is going to depend on the ability for that surface to stay wet. So generally, if it's a 10-minute contact time, you're going to have to reapply more than once. And so if you're looking for contact times that have shorter, say, between 1 and 5 minutes, then you're really improving your ability to achieve disinfection. The other key component is making certain that you are actually applying to the entire surface. So that, again, every area is getting in contact with the disinfectant and that you're killing what you're concerned with.
So do you happen to know, this is totally off the top, so you might not know, but do you happen to know like various contact times for different agents?
For different products on the market?
Yeah, not necessarily yours, but obviously you know yours, but compare that to, what else might be out there.
Sure.
I think that's a pretty big concern, that if you haven't thought about that in your pet care facility, is something to really consider, because sometimes we're just in a hurry. So we just want to spray stuff down, rinse it off, and move on. And that isn't actually going to be disinfecting that, especially now. We need to make sure of that.
Yeah. So accelerated hydrogen peroxide, our contact times, depending whether you're using our ready to use or pre-moistened wipes, they are a 1-minute contact time, 30 seconds for some of the claims on the product. And then if you're using our concentrate, then it is a 5-minute contact time.
Okay.
For your disinfection needs. If we're looking at quaternary ammonium compounds, which are a lot of the most commonly used disinfectants out there, they generally are 10-minute contact times. There may be some that have shorter contact times, but then you run into some occupational health and safety issues as you're increasing the concentration. Bleach would typically, if you're just buying off-the-counter bleach, would be a 10-minute contact time. There are products in healthcare that are faster, but again, you're increasing the concentration, which impacts safety of the product.
I was going to ask about bleach and what you, if you knew that. And so for bleach, if you're diluting it, is that 10 minutes if it's straight bleach, or that's with the dilution?
With the dilution.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say.
There's a fantastic white paper written by Dr. Jason Stull on infection prevention in canine group settings. And it has a table of commonly used disinfectants in there that will detail all the different products that are out there, chemistries that are out there, and not the individual brand names necessarily.
Right.
But, and I can share that.
Okay, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
And it really makes it clear about the various contact times, the various concentrations that you need to use to be able to be effective against the pathogens of concern in the canine group settings environment.
So and all of those times are on. If you went out and bought something, they would obviously be in the back of the label or in the information about that in terms of how to use it, right? So so that's the tip for everyone that's doing pet care. Obviously, you have to balance the price of the product, but then also how long it takes to use. So sometimes there may be actually better to buy something that's faster in the long run. That'll save you more time because your staff's able to do their job faster. So that's a really important consideration, and just making sure you understand at your facility how long you are supposed to be applying something, because if you don't apply it right, you're not actually disinfecting. So
if you think about a door handle, for instance, and you're using a over-the-counter or box store um, disinfecting wipe, it might have a 10-minute contact time, which means if that wipe dries in 3 to 4 minutes, you'd have to reapply twice to achieve disinfection on that door handle, which hopefully everybody is disinfecting door handles many, many times a day right now.
right.
And so you might have to use 3 or even 4 wipes to disinfect the door handle versus 1 wipe. And so really think about what you're actually saving.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Todd brings up a really good point in terms of talking about the number of wipes. And so when we're looking at cleaning and disinfecting, it's also important that we're not using the same cloth over and over on multiple surfaces and multiple areas. So in order to really minimize transmission, you're wanting to use a cloth in one area and continuing to change, either if you're using like a terry cloth or microfiber, we want to fold it so that you can use different sides of that cloth. And you're not just using the same part, rinsing it. And it really is, you never want to dip back into the solution. You want to apply your disinfectant onto the surface, or have pre-moistened cloths that are in a bucket that you're pulling out. You really don't want to continuously use that cloth throughout, because you're going to pick up, and there is science to talk about the fact that we can pick up pathogens, and then as we're wiping a different surface, leave them on that surface. So we really want to minimize that as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. My husband is in love with microfiber cloths. We have those everywhere in our house. Luckily, we have so many, I can just keep using different ones all the time. So that's kind of helpful. Yesterday, what came up several times on our talk was the discussion of viricides. Can you just explain what that is so everybody understands? Because people were talking about it yesterday, and I'm not sure everyone knew what everyone else was talking about. So
Sure. So I'll step back and talk about, there's 2 different types of viruses. And then that'll kind of lead to what a viricide is. And so when we're dealing with pathogens, there are what we would call enveloped viruses, or easy to kill. Coronavirus is actually an example of that. Envelope viruses are easier to kill than bacteria like Salmonella or E. coli. And then there are non-envelope viruses, and these are not easy to kill. And an example of that would be parvovirus. And so when you're looking at a product that has a viricide claim, basically what that means is that testing has been conducted and that the product has proven to be able to be effective against viruses, but if the virus is listed on the product label. So when you say viricide, it's not everything. So that's where you have to really look at your product label and determine, is it effective against hard to kill or not easy to kill viruses like parvovirus, or is it only effective against the easy to kill envelope viruses like coronavirus? And that's really important, again, in outbreaks, because many of our different infectious and respiratory infections that come in with animals are non-envelope, more difficult to kill viruses. Right. And if you're using a product that says it's a viricide but doesn't have the ability to kill those harder pathogens, then you're not going to be able to stop an outbreak. So from an EPA perspective, the definition is that it's been tested and shown effective against viruses. It's up to us to determine whether we have efficacy against both the easy to kill and the not easy to kill viruses.
And how would you know that? Like, what would it say something on the box, or is that something else you would have to, like, do you have to be a scientist to know that, or is there a way to know that?
Well, what I would look for, I mean, parvovirus is probably one of the more difficult to kill viruses out there from a disinfecting perspective. So I would use that as your benchmark for the not easy or hard to kill viruses, and set the level of efficacy based on that. So if I see parvovirus on my label, then I'm going to have confidence that I'm killing the hard, not easy to kill viruses, and therefore I should also be killing the easy to kill viruses. That's usually the easiest way that I would look at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you guys do have your product, it is in a lot of veterinary field. I mean, that's really where you started before that's the first time I heard of you was in the veterinary space. So I know that you're familiar with those harder to kill viruses.
Actually, our product is most commonly used in animal sheltering, and that's where it's been chosen by virtually all of the policy and governing bodies as the product of choice. Because, in fact, there's one academic, Dr. Kate Hurley, who said to me a few years ago now, she said that accelerated hydrogen peroxide is the product that has saved more lives in animal sheltering than any other product in the industry. Because it's so good at controlling upper respiratory infections, making sure cats don't get sick, making sure that they become adoptable and they're not euthanized. So you actually will find it much more, not that it's not in veterinary, it's very, very commonly used in veterinary, but in sheltering, it's virtually everywhere.
That's awesome. So I had a question here. So Louise said, do you have any advice on disinfecting exterior areas? So inside is kind of easy with detergent and disinfectant, but exterior gravel, grass, fence areas, especially at freezing temperatures. So do you have any suggestions on that?
Inside is hard. Disinfectants are designed and approved for use on hard, non-porous surfaces. So if you have an outdoor kennel where it is asphalt, cement, that type of surface is going to be easier to disinfect and clean. If we're dealing with actual live grass, there really isn't anything that we can do from a disinfectant perspective on that. You can certainly, make certain that we're picking up any organic material. The best way there would be to, utilize water and try to dissolve anything that was left behind, but you can't really disinfect grass. If we're dealing with artificial turf, then that is because it is plastic, then you can do a better job with that. And again, how it's set up where it has the drainage below, there's a greater chance of being able to achieve a better sense of disinfection. But the outside is hard. When you're dealing with colder temperatures, you're also dealing with the fact of what happens is as the temperature drops, it actually takes longer to kill from a disinfection perspective. And of course, the product's going to freeze. And so if we're talking about contact time having to stay wet, then it becomes more difficult. What we see in larger farms is actually the addition of propylene glycol into the solution so that it helps reduce its freezing. So think about in the winter when we change our windshield washer fluid so that it doesn't freeze, it has propylene glycol in it. And so that's the concept where we use some of that along with water in order to help minimize the chance of freezing. But if you're diluting it and using it immediately, then that'll work. It's just we understand that it's going to freeze and means we're not getting our contact time. So it is quite hard.
Yeah, that's a great question too.
This is true of all chemistries, not our product.
Right.
Also, you want to be conscious that washer fluid, propylene glycol, these are not ideally suited to like canine environments.
Yeah.
So you would want to be super cautious about
you have to wash.
Sure animals are gone and you're rinsing it properly.
Yeah.
Again, true of all products. There are some products that work better in contaminated environments than others. So some, like bleach, for instance, when it comes in contact with the soil, becomes inactivated. Right, it just stops working, and it stops. All efficacy is gone. There is evidence that accelerated hydrogen peroxide works better. Significant evidence that it works better in an organic soil and in a contaminated environment than other products. Which not every environment is created equal. A product that was designed for a hospital is going to have gone through a significant. The cleaning standard that it will have gone through is going to be different than a product that was designed for doggy daycare, because what is clean to a surgery suite and clean to a play area are very different. So you want to make sure that you're choosing a product that that is capable of disinfecting for that environment, right? And so that's something that you don't widely see published, or if that information is there on the label, it's not easy to read. It will say 1-step cleaner and disinfectant, for instance, means that it was tested in a certain amount of soil, a very low amount of soil, as it turns out. So, although we have been able to meet that challenge, we could very easily exceed the standard for that. Whereas not all products are created equal in that respect.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I would like my hospital to be cleaner than any really, really clean daycare. So if I have to have surgery. So Lori was asked, and this one I can kind of address a little bit, but if you guys have any comments, in a daycare setting where the dogs are touching each other, how can we keep them from transmitting germs, viruses, and bacteria? We can clean and disinfect, but if they're touching each other, this is where the situation becomes more difficult. And I do think, Lori, that's a valid concern. I think the risk is low that the dogs are transferring communicable diseases to each other, or in the case of COVID-19, if the dog was around someone that was infected, and then that person sneezed on the dog and the dog had droplets and then transferred that to another dog or person, that's a possibility. But again, it assumes the dog's been around an infected person. But I think that's kind of one of the hazards of just doing daycare and doing off-leash play where you're having the dogs interact, which is why we always want to do safety checks and health checks and make sure that you have healthy dogs playing with each other. I know yesterday we talked a little bit about the wipes, and if you guys want to address if that's safe, if those are safe to use on animals, because I know that was one option that people were talking about yesterday.
Just in terms of, just want to touch base on COVID-19 in terms of the potential transmission. Right now, it is strictly infecting humans. It's not something that we need to worry about at this point about infecting animals. I do know there's one animal that there's been some discussion of what happened in Hong Kong, but again, all the experts are saying this disease isn't something that is going to cause infection with pets. And there's really not a great understanding of whether we can pick up and the ability for the virus to survive on fur or hair and for us to pick it up ourselves. But if we want to be careful, then our wipes aren't designed. They're designed, again, for hard surface disinfection. But one of the things we've tried to do with Rescue is make certain that we have very safe products and very safe chemistry. And so we've done appropriate testing. We know that the product's non-toxic. If it does get ingested accidentally, so that even means if you've cleaned your kennel and there's a little bit of pooling or puddling after, if the dog comes out and licks it, our product's not toxic. They're not going to be harmed by ingesting small amounts. There's soap, there's detergent in it, so it's not going to taste very good, but it's not going to harm them. And we've done testing to look at efficacy on in an eyes from an irritation perspective. And so it's non-irritating to eyes, it's non-irritating to skin. Again, there's soap in it, so it's going to sting a little bit, just like if we get hand soap or dish soap in our eyes, but it's not going to harm the pets. And so while we can't promote the use of it on an animal, because that's not what our registration is, from a safety perspective, it's not a concern if somebody were to do that. I know many of us use it for wiping our paws of our animals. I have a son who plays hockey. I use it on him when he stinks after hockey. So I really do. And we use it on our hands when we're at trade shows, sometimes when we don't have alcohol hand sanitizer. So from a safety perspective, I'm comfortable if we were to do something like that, but we have to understand we can't recommend it. It's your choice. Right. From our safety testing, it's not going to harm the animal.
And what about the other thing that came up yesterday was folks who wanted to rinse leashes off or collars off that came in. So putting together some kind of a dip where they could make a liquid and then dip stuff in there and hang them up to dry. Is that something that would be safe to do and okay for whatever is being dipped in there, as well as just effective in cleaning and disinfecting?
Yeah, and so if we're dealing with like a nylon leash, obviously that type of material is going to handle being dipped in, laundered, or hung while it's wet. Obviously, if we're dealing with leather, you're going to have, it's not a material that's going to handle that type of application. But we do have information on our product labels that does talk to the disinfection of leashes and handling equipment, where you can either spray it down or dip it. My preference would be dipping because you're getting a complete immersion, everything's being covered, and then letting it hang to dry.
Okay, that's
It's
great.
actually
Because
a very
that,
common practice with bowls, in sheltering, especially where cleaning, communal water bowls, especially in feeding, they're dipped, left for 5 minutes at 2 ounces per gallon, and then rinsed.
okay, that's great. And then this was another question, Taylor, can rescue be mixed with other products such as triple two or simple green and still be effective?
No.
The answer would be no. I would say our product is a disinfectant. You have detergents or surfactants in there that provide your cleaning power. And whenever you're mixing different products, you run into the issue of potentially creating a more serious issue of a chemical reaction. So, we have seen issues where facilities have mixed bleach with other things, and all of a sudden they've had to evacuate because of the noxious fumes. So really, when you're purchasing a product, whether it's a detergent or whether it's a disinfectant, you really don't want to be mixing anything. It's been designed to be utilized for you at the dilutions and the contact times on the product label, and you really shouldn't be adding anything to it in order to not just ensure that it works effectively, but that you're not creating anything hazardous to you or the animals. And that's really, we're starting to see an increase in, I'll call it occupational health and safety, but there's been some discussion around people at home creating their own cleaning products, and that's leading to more hospital visits because of chemical reactions that have caused respiratory irritancy, eye irritancy. And so really, I recommend not mixing anything.
Think about it like a precision instrument. You use it as the label directs, regardless of whose product it is, because a lot of effort and chemistry and science has gone into all of the products that are out there, whether it was 20 years ago or 100 years ago. By adding untested, unproven chemicals to that, you could be just reducing the efficacy or eliminating the efficacy of the product, and you're no longer disinfecting at all because nobody tests. It's not how it's meant to be used.
Right. So we have a couple questions all along this line, and I know I tried to explain this yesterday. I don't think I really did a very good job. So one is, this is from Emma from Canine Resorts in Fanwood. Is there a specific agent or chemical or whatever that's known to kill COVID-19? And Chris had a similar question along the same lines of, I know that coronavirus is listed on Rescue's info sheet. So will it kill COVID-19, and should we expect any delays in shipping in regards to Rescue? We'll save the shipping part to the end, but if you can address the first part. So basically, what is out there that kills COVID-19?
Yeah. Okay. So because COVID-19 is what we would call an emerging pathogen, the EPA has what they call an emerging pathogen rule that gets implemented as soon as WHO or other bodies state that there is a potential concern for community health around a new virus that we're seeing. And so as soon as that happens, then this emerging pathogen rule goes into place. And basically what it means is that we look at the hierarchy. And so earlier I talked about the difference between non-enveloped and enveloped viruses. And EPA utilizes that for the emerging pathogen rule. So if a product has undergone testing and has a sufficient number of non-enveloped viruses on its label, manufacturers can specifically add language on our product labels that talk to emerging pathogens. So the Rescue product, we do have that. And basically, I'll kind of read what it says because I couldn't get this memorized. But the criteria that it uses is it has to show activation of the emerging pathogen rule. So as I said, that's been announced that there's something happening. The product must be a hospital or broad spectrum disinfectant registered with the EPA. So that is something that's important, that when we're choosing a disinfectant, and this is the difference between a consumer or a product that we might go purchase at Walmart or Walgreens as opposed to a professional product. Not all products are equal, and not all products are going to be considered a hospital disinfectant. So you do need to make certain, first and foremost, that your product has that claim. And the second is then for emerging envelope viruses like coronavirus, the product has to have acceptable efficacy data previously submitted and reviewed by the EPA for at least one non-envelope virus. So poliovirus, parvovirus would be of that example. But what's going to happen is the EPA will not allow a manufacturer to talk to expected efficacy unless they have language on the product master label that the EPA has approved that includes information on emerging pathogens. So Rescue does have that. So we've been able to create a letter, and we can, with permission from the EPA, state that Rescue is effective against COVID-19. And many other healthcare products will be effective against COVID-19. The difference that we see for products that are traditionally focused for only the animal market, they don't have the emerging pathogen rule, so they can't provide in writing that they're effective against COVID-19. Not to say that they wouldn't, they just can't provide that information without the emerging pathogen rule on their master label.
Okay, so that was said way better than what I said yesterday. So I appreciate that.
It's why I had to write it down, because I know how to talk about it, but it's like it's easier to read it.
So another question from Canada: is data available comparing Rescue to jacketed calcium? I don't even know how to say all those words, so I'll just let you read that. I guess it's Aqualor in Canada or Wishy-Wash in the United States.
If we're talking to a direct comparison, I mean, I typically don't do product to product. We can look at chemistries. So, you know, if I'm going to look at calcium hypochlorite or anything like that, typically you're looking at a 10-minute contact time. The product's going to depend on what efficacy it has. And so really, rather than kind of going product to product, is what is it you're looking for in your facility? So if efficacy is first and foremost, and you're going to look at making certain that the products are meeting the pathogens you're most concerned about. Then the second thing you're going to look at, or if it's of a concern, is really the safety. And so really comparing the safety. Are there PPE needs that I need to be concerned of between the two products? Do I have to wear PPE with one product or the other? Again, our safety data indicates that we don't need to use personal protective equipment with our products. And then you're going to look at contact time and maybe even environmental in terms of where you're using it. So, I mean, certainly offline we could do some direct comparison, but I really try not to get into that. It's really looking at what is it that I'm looking for. And, you know, oftentimes it's the efficacy, the speed, safety, and environmental profile is what is most important. And how do the two products compare?
That's awesome. I just wrote that down. That's an awesome way to compare and decide what cleaning agent any of us are going to be using. So it is really what you're trying to do with it, clean versus disinfecting, because those are two separate things. Whether or not your employees are safe, and if they're safe, does that require some kind of protective gear? Which most of us are going to say no, we don't want to have protection gear because that's just going to take time for them to put it on and take it off, and it's more stuff in our facility. So we're going to probably not want something with that. And then we're going to want something that takes as little time as possible for the most part, just to cut down really on payroll hours so we can get the same effect. So that's a great kind of a three-pronged approach to comparing the different type of products and disinfectants out there. So that's really great. And then Lynn had just asked, just to repeat what you had said earlier, Todd, about the cleaning the bowls, what would be required for that? Because she said 2 ounces a gallon with 10-minute contact time. Was that right?
No, it's 5 minutes. If I said 10 minutes, I misspoke. It should
be okay.
As long as the bowls are clean, then you're meeting your contact time.
Awesome. So a couple other questions. Well, Joy wanted to know if this was being recorded, and it is on Facebook Live, so it'll be on Facebook Live. We are also going to be, the Dog Gurus, is also going to be downloading it, and we're creating a separate page with just resources for COVID-19. So if you are not on our email list and you're listening, just PM us at the Dog Gurus Facebook, or you can email me at robin@thedoggurus.com and just let me know your email. We'll add you to our email so you'll get any updates over the next several weeks and months that we have when we add things to that page. So let us know, because we're in the process of building just a whole resource list, and this video will be there as well. If I'm going to kind of close out this, I thought, well, we'll be on the call for 15, 20 minutes, and 40 minutes later, we're still talking about it. So obviously it's a topic of huge concern to all of us now, right now, especially. It always has been a topic, I think, for the pet care industry, but just more so now with the coronavirus. I know that I want to just ask you guys where Greg's been posting the link, but just let us know again where the link, or where it's best for them to go and find your product. And then also if they want to contact you guys directly for any other questions, if you could tell us that. And then Todd, I know you mentioned yesterday that you guys are doing you reduced some of your prices because of the pandemic, because World Health Organization declared this a pandemic. So if you want to talk about that as well.
Sure. Yeah, so we're super excited. This starts today. We have announced that we are reducing the cost on wipes. Now, we don't set the retail prices. We don't control the retail prices, rather. So typically they can go anywhere from, if you buy through a veterinary distributor, which you can do, and I want to mention this, then they would go usually about $17 a container, $17, $18 a container, depending on which distributor you buy from. We are reducing that effective immediately to $13.50. So we want to help you make sure that all the pets and the people in your facility are as safe as they can possibly be. And this isn't a temporary price reduction. We're rolling back the price to help you be more effective in your facility. So that works out to a little under 8 cents a wipe, I think. And it should make a really big difference in terms of being able to disinfect properly and maintain your facility properly. We don't want to make cost a barrier for you. The other thing that I noticed in the comments too, people were mentioning that it's sold out on Amazon, and that's very possible. That's not the most cost-effective place for a boarding facility or daycare to buy, but it's sometimes easiest because they don't know where they can source the product. And if you go to our website, rescuedisinfectants.com, we have a where to buy page. Most facilities believe that you need a veterinarian on staff to buy our product, and some distributors do require that, but there are 2 distributors in the United States, veterinary distributors, that don't require you to have a veterinarian on staff and ship for free. So you can get the absolute best pricing from them, much better than what you'd find on Amazon, and free shipping. And the supply, like, we are working day and night here to keep up. So if a retailer is sold out, it doesn't mean that there's no supply. There's supply in the channel. It's just got to get restocked. We're working like crazy around here to keep up with demand. So there are 2 distributors that I can recommend to you. One is MWI, and the other one is called Midwest Veterinary Supply. Both of those will sell to non-veterinary customers. Both of those have a minimum order of $1, and I think they both ship for free. So, and they'll have this pricing. In Canada, the product is called Prevail, and depending on where you're located, it's available through the buying groups. So if you're in Ontario, it'd be veterinary purchasing, or if you reach out to us, we'll be happy to connect you with the appropriate distributor. So at rescuedisinfectants.com, and then we have a where to buy page. Plus we have a customer support team that is very, very happy to help you. Keep in mind, it might take a day right now for us to get back to you with the questions we're getting from all market segments. It's pretty wild around here, but we will get back to you, and we will help you find the best possible place to buy the product.
That's awesome. That's really good information. And what's the best way for them to contact you guys?
Through the website. We have a form to fill out. We have a customer success team standing by. We will make sure that if it's your first time purchasing from us or you've never used the product before, that you're going to get all the implementation advice you can possibly get, protocol, SOPs, whatever you need to be successful in implementation and making sure that everybody's safe, the humans and the people, and the animals rather, in your facility. We work tirelessly to make sure that information is available for you.
Yeah, it's really important to us that we try to set people up for success. And so we try to make certain that we have all of the information on dilution, application, everything you need to make it easy to switch to rescue or use rescue, or in the event of an outbreak, help what we can do to give you different procedures and things to think of, which actually makes me realize one contemplation when we're dealing with respiratory viruses is really trying to minimize spraying. So if you are cleaning, if you're using a high pressure sprayer, you may want to look to something that's more low pressure or foaming, because respiratory viruses, if you aerosolize them back into the air, that's going to increase the chance of an animal picking that up. So really try to minimize the amount of pressure that you're using on some surfaces if you're dealing with anything that's respiratory in nature.
Oh, that's good information to know too. One last comment, someone had said, reiterating about dogs being affected by COVID-19, and Nicole did say this earlier, that this is not affecting dogs. So there is a coronavirus that affects dogs. That is not COVID-19. And there's actually multiple other coronaviruses that affect people too. So that's not COVID-19 either. So COVID-19 is brand new. It is person to person, not person to dog or dog to person. It doesn't transfer that way. But what we're talking about is just with the CDC saying we need to be aware of cleaning and just in general keeping ourselves safe. That's really what we're looking at. I had yesterday somebody ask, should we sound the alarm to all of our clients? And I would say no, but I would explain to your clients and reiterate how you're cleaning, because it's going to give them a little bit self-confidence about bringing their dog. Really, nobody wants to go anywhere right now. And what you're trying to do by showing your clients how you clean and what cleaning products you're using, and the fact that you are careful in terms of spreading germs and not being able to spread germs, to make them comfortable coming to your facility. So I would be doing that. I would be sending out emails and Facebook Live showing, here's our Purell stations, and here's what we use for cleaning back where the dogs are, and here's how we're cleaning the doorknobs. And I would be doing all of that, because
we actually have a great shareable resource on our website that we have a series of posters for designed just for boarding and daycare facilities that actually detail. Sorry, I'm not good at this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Exactly what steps and measures facilities are taking. This is actually for the pet owner to see, so you can explain the measures that you're taking to prevent the spread of disease in your facility. And then this one's actually for the back of the house, with checklists and monitoring. And this is information you can print right off of our website and put up on your wall. And there's actually a couple about vaccines as well that we have.
Yeah, those are those the ones that we had looked at a couple months ago, Todd?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Todd actually had reached out to the dog gurus when they were making those and said, hey, we want to use these. What do you think? And I appreciated that, he cares enough about our industry that he wants to be saying the right things and providing resources. Very, very much their model is similar to the dog gurus. In fact, that they want to provide as much just to help everybody as possible. So I love that. They're really big on education, not just, here's our cleaning products, but the education behind it and the science behind it, and then really making it understandable, which kind of is what they're doing today with this call. So all of those are downloadable, and we'll make sure that we send out a link to make sure everyone gets that information to get to their website and get those as well, because those would be great even to just share with your clients. So, well, this has been much longer than I expected, so I appreciate you guys staying on. And obviously a big issue for everybody right now. And if you guys have questions, just contact them. If you need any other information, we're going to continue to do some of these Facebook Lives over the next few weeks with different topics. So email us your topics if you are concerned about something particularly related to COVID-19. And thank you guys both for being on. I really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.